Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about the backlash that's exploding right now over conversations trying to compare Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr. If I tell you that the white community has taken this personal, I mean exactly that. And honestly, the irony is loud because if I remember correctly, Charlie himself once said that Martin Luther King Jr. ruined America because of the civil rights movement. Now, I don't know what version of history some people learned, but the history that I know is crystal clear. Martin Luther King Jr. stood up for black people. He fought against oppression and he never submitted to white supremacy. Charlie, on the other hand, spent years convincing people that empathy isn't necessary, while MLK dedicated his life to preaching unity and love. How can anyone put those two men in the same sentence? The only thing they shared, unfortunately, is the tragic way their lives ended. If you think I'm exaggerating, please go ahead, check out these reactions this is getting on TikTok. People are not having it. Stay tuned and drop your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll come back at the end of this video to give my own 2 cents. Let's watch this.
See, what we're not gonna fucking do is this. What we're not going to fucking do is compare these two individuals. There's literally nothing that they have in common. Try to find any excuse you can possibly find to say that Charlie Kirk, for whatever reason, was for the people. Okay, he was for his own opinions. Okay, he was for his own ego, and that ego got ahead of itself and jumped out of line when he realized he was too late. I'm just being realistic. Have you ever wondered why Malcolm, right, doesn't have a holiday, but Martin Luther does? And although Martin Luther was a great activist in himself, when he got out of line and started actually talking about another specific situation that's once again in the Middle East involving one specific fucking group like it always does. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because if you watch the Charlie Kirk show just a couple of nights ago, you could see that he was questioning the narrative while talking to Ben Shapiro out of everybody. And did you see Ben's face? Because we should all know who Ben is by now. But see, that's one of the mentors, right? That's one of the ones that you can't touch. There's a lot of people that were like that. I really thought Charlie was one of those individuals. But see, that's exactly what happens when you're young and you start talking about politics, and then you get to a point of where you have so much influence that you have no idea what to do with. Just like Harry and a couple of others. But then again, there's two sides to the same exact coin, okay? It involves both sides. And what happened to Charlie Kirk is the result of pure division. And I'm sorry, but one of those individuals in the photo deserves empathy. And I'm sure you're aware of which one that is. Charlie is literally an advocate for trying to convince people that empathy is this weakness, or empathy doesn't even fucking exist. Who says some shit like that? I mean, I can sit here with you and provide, I don't know, thousands of hours of evidence of why this man would receive some sort of karma. And I'm sorry, but he just doesn't deserve to be brought up in the same exact conversation.
The fuck? Bro, like literally, this comment takes the cake as the dumbest, most uneducated comment that I have ever seen on the entire TikTok app. The last 4 years that I've been playing on this app, your comment is by far the dumbest. So congratulations on that. But other than them both being assassinated for their political beliefs, they're not the same. Their relevancy in the history of our country are not even close. Okay? MLK preached about peace and unity and equal rights. Charlie didn't. That wasn't his viewpoint. Alright, so while both deaths are tragic and uncalled for, these motherfuckers are not the same. That right there, bro, is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Congratulations, bro.
This country is broken. Yep, and it's been broken for decades. Listen, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Charlie Kirk is the equivalent of what MLK was back in the civil rights era. Now, you can say what you want to about that, but the man stood for something, and he stood for this. He stood for religious freedom, he stood for freedom of speech, and he stood for the ability to capture our youth's attention and to get them to open up. You could disagree or agree with whatever political side he took, but he accomplished those three things at a very high level. He empowered youth to proclaim Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. He empowered youth to exercise their ability to have freedom of speech and debate civilly. And he empowered our youth to do many things on college campuses that they did not previously have the ability to do. And he suffered the ultimate consequence for what he believed in, and for what he tried to portray, and for what he tried to he successfully was able to get our youth to engage and force change amongst their way of thinking, even if it was through peaceful debate. He engaged them to think differently and to learn to exercise their freedom of speech, and so on and so forth. So forever, our generation today will remember yesterday what took place and how they felt about it all, whether it was for positive or for negative. They will always remember how they felt, and they will always remember 9/10/2025.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sit here idly while you compare Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. advocated for black liberation. He advocated for socialism in America. He was a hero. What was Charlie Kirk's legacy, huh? That black people should go back to being slaves? That his 10-year-old daughter should give birth if she whipped? What was his legacy? Listen, genius, he wasn't killed because he had different political beliefs. He was killed because he had a huge audience, he had a huge center of control, and he used it to advocate for ethno-nationalism and white supremacy. And fun fact, Martin Luther King was not the only person who contributed to the civil rights movement, okay? Read Malcolm X. Read the work of anyone else there. It was not just Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, okay?
Okay, this right here, wild. How dare you do that? How dare you put a picture of Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King and make that comment? Martin Luther King fought for civil rights, fought for black, brown, and even Hispanic and Asian rights in this country, so that we would be seen as equal, so that others would be seen as equal, so that everybody would have the same rights. Charlie Kirk literally said the civil rights movement was a mistake and that Martin Luther King was a bad person. So how dare you have the nerve to put his face next to King's face and make a statement like that? It's getting wild out here.
The real reason I think MAGA is comparing Charlie Kirk to MLK Jr. is because they really thought that Charlie Kirk was going to be their white savior. Now walk with me. Let's just get this out the way. In no way, shape, or form is Charlie Kirk and MLK Jr. the same. They're literally two opposite sides of the spectrum. They are not even in the same place in the afterlife. But historically, white people chose MLK Jr. specifically to make him the savior for black people. That's not to discredit MLK Jr. because he did do great work, especially legislatively. But if you were to ask black people, there would definitely be more people and more contenders, not just MLK Jr. But to them, Charlie Kirk was supposed to have the same legislative impact as someone like MLK Jr. Like I said in my previous video, I don't think they expect Trump to finish the job this term. They're more so expecting Trump to just lay the groundwork down. And then Charlie Kirk was supposed to be the one to finish the job. They wanted Charlie Kirk to be president when he became eligible. And I think that they thought that Charlie Kirk was going to be the one to take us back to the 1950s like Trump has been promising. As I'm watching some of these clips from Charlie Kirk, that is his exact messaging, saying the civil rights was a mistake. Just a clusterfuck of nonsense. Also, I think the reason why they're using MLK Jr. as a comparison, because when MLK Jr. was assassinated, the movement did halt. Now granted, it was a succession of multiple assassins. It was not just MLK Jr. But the spirit of that movement did pass away with him. And that's not to say that progress still hasn't been made since then, but we have never had another MLK Jr. or even another Malcolm X or even another Fred Hampton, at least yet. And I think a big part of that reason is because we all saw the outcome. So on the flip side, like with Charlie Kirk, I think that they know that the movement, whatever the fuck he was pushing, is going to stop with him. Not necessarily racism, but they are not going to be able to pick up the baton that he left and take it further. I think that's really why they're mad. I think it's partially the fear like this could happen to someone that looks like them, and also the fact that Trump did get assassination attempts. But I think they also know that the spirit of this movement is dying with Charlie Kirk. And it's like the fantasy of making America great again like it was in the 1950s is dying with Charlie Kirk. So I don't necessarily think that they think that he's actually like MLK Jr. I think it's actually way deeper than that. But you know, maybe they just don't have the brain power to process it.
To eulogize means to speak well of. And I wonder what Charlie Kirk would say about Charlie Kirk, because his death stood in stark contrast to the way he lived and the things he believed and the things he espoused. He often talked about black criminality. He often talked about the high crime rates among black people. He spent his life saying that black people basically were inferior and they were superior. Apparently, he's never met a qualified black person that didn't earn it through merit. They were all set aside as DEI. He spent his life talking about empathy and how it was necessary. He spent his life talking about the necessity of people dying for the preservation of an amendment, a piece of paper. He spent his life categorizing people and percentagizing people and slanting things to present a certain aspect of things. He died forwarding the notion that it's black people who are responsible for gun death. His last words were gang violence, but he wasn't shot. He wasn't shot. We know it was because we know who it wasn't. First off, Charlie Kirk was not assassinated. He was shot. The congressmen in Minnesota, they were assassinated because they were shot for their political views. Charlie Kirk was shot. And Charlie Kirk was shot doing the very thing he'd always done, percentagizing and blaming and minimizing and saying these things are not true. These things, his last words were gang violence. But we know who it was because we know who it wasn't. 3 words let you know they weren't black. It was Utah and at large. Now, if Charlie Kirk, we're looking at a situation with Charlie Kirk, would he say he was the victim of crime or white on white violence? Because what Charlie Kirk always talked about was how many black people kill black people. But he never talked about how many white people kill white people.
There's literally people out here comparing Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King, saying that the same people who would talk shit about Charlie Kirk would not have been on the side of Martin Luther King. Charlie Kirk didn't even agree with what Martin Luther King said. He thought the whole civil rights movement was garbage. Tell me how that is even remotely the same thing. And Charlie Kirk was never advocating for anything. He was just making a lot of fucking noise and trying to make people mad. And I'm not trying to badmouth Charlie Kirk because I don't like to do shit like that. It's not my place. I don't know enough about him and his bullshit, but I know what I have heard I don't like. But to compare him to Martin Luther King with your whole chest, you don't believe me? Look at this shit. On a whole ass lie. And this is why No Child Left Behind was the stupidest fucking idea ever. And I say that as a child who should have been left behind. This right here is the exact reason why we need to stop watering down our history and teach the fucking accurate history. I'm not saying Charlie wasn't a pioneer in his little circle, but this take is wild and completely historically off base. This is the wildest shit I think I've heard to date.
Okay, let's close this video by really breaking down why this comparison between Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King Jr. is not just bizarre. Like, it's downright insulting to anyone who actually knows the history. Because when you pause and line these two men side by side, the difference are so clear, it's almost shocking that anyone would try to connect them. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. stood for justice, equality, and the unshakable belief that love is stronger than hate. He fought for, to dismantle segregation, to end the legalized oppression of Black Americans, and to create a society where people are judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. MLK risked his life, every single day for the very simple idea that all people deserve dignity and respect. He organized respectful protest. He endured jail cells. He faced unalived threats, and through it all, he refused to give in to bitterness or violence. He preached empathy, forgiveness, and the hard work of unity. His dream wasn't about power, it was about humanity. On the other hand, this other guy, on the other hand, built his career on provocation and division. This is according to what I found out from, I didn't know, I wasn't following this guy, okay? I'm just following his steps, the steps. Maybe I would watch him once here and there because of Candace Owens, okay? Yeah, I would watch him because of her, just to get the clear picture. But since, 2 days ago, okay, the videos that I've watched, I'm like, how can a person be hated this much? And then now I started researching, and my goodness, he has repeatedly dismissed the struggles of marginalized groups and mocked movements that fight for equality. This is the same man who once claimed that Martin Luther King Jr. ruined America because of the civil rights movement. Instead of empathy, he's promoted a cold, combative style of politics where winning the argument is more important than understanding people. Yeah, all the time he had to be the one leading, winning the conversations. All the clips, the videos that I've watched the past 3 days, it's been like that. I haven't seen a video where, the people in the audience would end up being the one winning the conversation. Instead of pushing for inclusion, he made a name for himself by drawing lines and daring people to cross them. His message has never been about bringing people together, okay? It's been about rallying one side against the other. I mean, a lot is going on here, okay? And some of the clips that I came across somehow, pissed me off. Now I'm imagining the people who knows this guy, who've been following this guy, being Black American and hearing a person talk like this almost every time I don't know what you call those meetings, university meetings, those ones he was hosting, holding, whatever. So how on earth can anyone put these two names in the same breath? I mean, the only thing these two share is that both of their lives ended violently. Even that similarity carries completely different meanings. I mean, MLK's unaliving was the result of a long struggle against racism and injustice. On the other hand, the other guy, while tragic and shocking, comes after years of choosing a path that thrived on conflict. This is not equality. That is not the dream Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life for. And that is why the internet, especially TikTok, is on fire over this. People are posting reactions after reactions, calling out the sheer audacity of Christian conservatives who are trying to rewrite history by placing CK on the same pedestal as Martin Luther King Jr. You can scroll through the comment sections and see thousands of users pointing out the obvious. One man sacrificed everything to bring people together. The other spent his career tearing people apart. The outrage isn't just about politics. It's about protecting the truth. It's about refusing to let anyone water down what MLK actually stood for. Some Christian conservatives are claiming that CK deserves this comparison because he stood firm in his beliefs. But let's be honest, okay? Standing firm isn't the same as standing for justice. MLK Jr. stood firm, but he stood for love, equality, and non-violence. He stood for the oppressed, not the oppressor. On the other hand, CK stood firm in mocking empathy, in belittling movements for racial justice, and in pushing a worldview where compassion is weakness. Those are not the same foundations, and pretending otherwise is a dangerous rewriting of history. Yeah, I said what I said. And that's why this backlash is so intense. It's not just about protecting MLK's legacy. It's about rejecting the idea that loudness and controversy somehow equal greatness. The TikTok community isn't buying it because they know greatness is measured by the lives you lift up, not the fights you pick. MLK lifted people. He inspired generations. He literally changed the law of the land and moved an entire nation closer to justice. Charlie Kirk, he hosted podcasts, organized rallies, and pushed talking points designed to keep people divided. This is what I found out online. Okay, YouTube, this is according to what people are saying online. It's not based on facts. Okay, by the way, this video is based on, it's for entertainment purposes only. Okay, when you think about it, the comparison actually tells us more about the people making it than it does about either men. It reveals how far some Christian conservatives will go to create a martyr figure of someone whose message they feel represents them, even if that means disrespecting one of the greatest leaders in American history. It shows how desperate some are to claim the moral high ground, even while promoting ideas that are the exact opposite of the love and unity MLK preached. So no, you can't compare Martin Luther King Jr. with CK. Not in their messages, not in their missions, not in the impact they left behind. One built bridges, the other built walls. One dreamt of a world where everyone could sit at the same table. The other spent his career arguing about who should be allowed in the room, and no matter how much spin anyone tries to put on it, the truth remains. Greatness isn't about being controversial, it's about being courageous. MLK had that courage. CK did not. And that's why people online are standing their ground. They're not letting history be twisted. They're not letting words be stolen. And they're not letting anyone equate a man who died for unity with a man who thrived on division. The reactions you're seeing aren't just outrage. They're a defense of truth, of empathy, and of everything MLK Jr. gave his life for. So as we come to the end of this video, remember this: you can disagree with someone's politics. You can even criticize their tactics, but you cannot rewrite history to make two completely different men look the same. The world saw what MLK stood for. The world saw what CK chose to be. And no amount of backlash or spin can ever change that. Subscribe to this channel if it's your first time to be on this channel. I will definitely see you in my next video. Please stay peaceful.